monastic tradition to wake and work for the goodness and the purity of the human mind and soul. That is what we will be discussing today in correlation with dark academia. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear in two different playlists here on the channel. Number one being the Poetry Discussion playlist. Number two being the Dark Academia playlist. And the poem that we are here to discuss is The Lake Isle of Innisfree by William Butler Yeats. And it reads as such: I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there, of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee-loud glade. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales of the morning where the cricket sings. There midnight's all a glimmer, and noon and purple glow, and evening full of the linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always night and day I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore, while I stand on the roadway or on the pavements gray. I hear it in the deep heart's core. Now, perhaps quite ironically, Yeats said that this was, he believed, the people's favorite poem. The people that he would meet in the street would stop him and ask him to recite this poem by memory. Ironic because this is a poem that is not only yearning for solitude, but yearning for solitude in a way that people must have recognized in their own soul, something that people must have recognized is alive in themselves. And is this not alive in you as you go through your common workday? You wish for some. So Lake Innisfree, there's a lake that has an island in it. This is a real place, but without the cabin. Our speaker here is yearning for the day when he can just drop everything and escape. I think that is alive in all of us. But why then do we have such a large social context to our lives? Is this part of our yearning to return to something more simple, or is there a duality within us? A duality within us that strives for the protection of society, but also for the self-reliance of solitude. The poem here is putting it on a pedestal, the grandeur of not just isolation, not just solitude, but also that same self-reliance. Pardon me. The idea of basically it's about farming, it's about having the honeybees, right? But to eat what you kill. This is a phrase that is very alive in business. It is very alive in entrepreneurship. Eat what you kill. This is a phrase that suggests you get what you work for and nothing else. We've come so far from this, right? That our labor is very seldom. Our labor very seldom correlates to what it is that we get. You work for money. You spend the money for shelter. You spend the money for food. But that leaves us without a connection to that food. It leaves us without a connection to that shelter. This poem is saying, hey, I want that connection back. I think there is something in dark academia which is very much related to this. I think there's something in dark academia that is striving for that self-reliance, but I think that there is still a disconnect from the labor, the monastic type of labor that is often associated with this idea. I think that dark academia is a striving for the mental work of academia, the mental work of intelligence, the mental work of building a world inside the self to translate to something. Now, when we build in the real world, as the speaker here suggests, having a cabin on that island, that is a real world connection from labor to shelter. When the speaker talks about 9 bean rows and some honeybees, that is a connection between real world labor and food. I think that what dark academia is largely striving towards is a world built from the self, a world built inside the self. And solitude, I think, is one of the only ways that this happens, because the world is so noisy, the world is so busy, the world is constant. The inner self in today's society, I think, is not quite so constant. How well do we really know ourselves? And if we don't know ourselves, how can we know anyone else? This is, on the surface, sort of a hippy dippy type of thing to say, it seems, but I think that there is a deeper truth therein. The self, the inner self, might be something for which we have very little time in today's world, but that inner voice doesn't shut up. That inner voice just keeps going. That inner voice is constant. And the sort of distance that we have from that inner self building in the real world cannot be particularly healthy, can it? So I think that the real dichotomy between dark academia and something like this, if there is one, is that idea of labor in the real world translating to the stuff that we have in the real world. And I don't mean stuff as in Beanie Babies and plushies and things like that. I mean the stuff that we have that is necessary. I think that the rise in something like dark academia is largely from the yearning that we have to be appreciated as individuals, the yearning that we have to be appreciated as intellectuals. And there's no real translation between that, I think, and the real world as we interface with the real world today. Much of what we do is preordained. You don't go to work and decide what you're going to do that day, probably. Even entrepreneurs, there are boxes they have to check, and that's about as free as it gets in today's world, right? The person who is building their own business. And I do not say these things as an argument for communism, right? I think that oftentimes there's a big leap made between I don't like the world in which I live, and we should have something like socialism, communism. We should all sit together and sing Kumbaya. I don't think that that is the correct outcome here. I think that what has to happen is that we have to provide for ourselves this sort of island for the soul, this Isle of Innisfree for the soul. And there's a jump often made between that and something that is sort of post-World War I nihilistic. We have to tear everything down that we have. I don't think that's true. In fact, I think that's why there is such a premium put on the ideas of the big institutions in something like dark academia. That's why the aesthetic is so preparatory school. The idea that, so I think that there is a maybe misconstrued line between preparatory schools, the big universities, the Harvards, the Yales, etc., and their dress codes that leaks into something like dark academia, because dark academics, I think, are those who are often shut out from that world. But I don't think it is that world, the world of the wealthy, that is alluring to dark academia. I think that what it is the aisle that is set up, that is allowed in the world of the ultra wealthy, between everyday occurrences, everyday goings on, everyday going to work, and the academic setting. The rich kids that get sent to Harvard and Yale, they don't have to worry about what's going on their plate that day. It's provided for them. That is something that dark academics, I think, yearn for. But I think the only way to get that for someone who ascribes to the aesthetics and the mind frames of dark academia is to build it. You have to build that separation. It does not come to you freely. It does not come to you by birthright. That's an interesting idea. And I think that if dark academia is to flourish in the way that it can, dark academics themselves have to build a real-world success to put up that wall for ourselves. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out. And there are 2 playlists as well as a video on the screen right now that YouTube thinks you will enjoy. So hit those buttons. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.